Dana, I sure am. Good morning to you. Today, Republican senators are outraged, if not downright furious, with the FBI after they learned that some of their calls were also probed as part of the investigation into January 6th, where senators were basically finding out where these people were calling and where they were calling from. These reports are just coming out yesterday, and we're learning who was targeted in the probe, and they include Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Josh Hawley of Missouri, Tommy Tuberville of Alabama, and Representative Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania. A document recently uncovered by the Trump administration and first reported by Fox Digital shows the FBI pulled the phone records of those lawmakers a few years after the January 6th attack. As Politico points out, the probe did not obtain the content of the calls, only the recipients, the lengths of the calls, and the date on which they were placed. The request for this information was approved by a grand jury. This was all tied to the FBI and Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigation into the alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. President Trump was charged but not convicted in the case. The case's code name was Arctic Frost. Lawmakers, as Aisha mentioned, will have a lot of questions about this, about why this was allowed to happen, and are also considering next steps to hold the FBI.
Okay, so here's what nobody's talking about right now. And honestly, it's kind of insane. Jack Smith, the special counsel who's been investigating Trump for what feels like forever now. Yeah, he's apparently sitting on a mountain of evidence. And I'm not talking about the stuff we've already seen. I'm talking about documents, transcripts, recordings, materials that could completely blow this whole thing wide open. And they're keeping it secret. Can you believe this? So here's what happened. Just this past Tuesday, advocacy groups and a federal appeals court basically went to war over this. They're demanding that Smith release his full report on Trump's handling of classified documents. The report that Judge Cannon has been blocking since last year. Yeah, last year. We're talking about evidence that's been sitting in a vault somewhere while the rest of us are just waiting. And look, I get it. There are legal procedures, right? There's a process. But come on. We're talking about potential crimes involving a sitting president, his second term, by the way. And the American public is being kept completely in the dark about what actually happened. Here's where it gets wild. Legal experts are saying Smith's confidential filings include interviews we've never heard about, National Archives records that have never seen the light of day, communication logs from Trump during the entire 2020 election crisis, and apparently, these documents are way more detailed, way more damaging than anything that's been released so far. Like, think about that for a second. The stuff we've already seen was bad enough to trigger multiple indictments. So what's in the secret files? What could possibly be so explosive that they're fighting this hard to keep it sealed? Last Friday, Smith filed a court brief outlining his prosecutorial strategy. And buried in the legal jargon and the procedural language, he basically confirmed it. He confirmed that material evidence is still sealed from public view. Grand jury transcripts, exhibit lists, the works, all sitting there, hidden. Now, they did release some redacted evidence a few weeks back, and even the heavily censored version, has some pretty damaging stuff. There was this White House staffer who gave a first-hand account of Trump's reactions on January 6th, what he said, what he did, how he responded while the Capitol was under siege, and that's just a tiny piece of what they have. So why are we only getting crumbs? Why are we getting these little teases, these Friday afternoon document dumps with half the pages blacked out when there's apparently volumes more just sitting in Jack Smith's office? And here's the thing that really gets me. This isn't just about legal strategy anymore. This is about transparency. This is about the American people having the right to know what happened. We're talking about potential election interference. We're talking about classified documents. We're talking about January 6th, and the full story is being kept under lock and key. The debate over judicial transparency is reaching a boiling point right now. One side is saying, look, we need to protect the integrity of ongoing legal proceedings. We can't just dump everything into the public sphere and compromise the case. Fair enough. But the other side is saying, are you kidding me? How long are we supposed to wait? How much are we supposed to trust that justice is being served when we can't even see the evidence? And you know what's really interesting? The timing of all this. We're heading into 2026. Midterms are coming. Political battles are heating up. And suddenly there's this massive push to either release or block these documents. Coincidence? Yeah, right. Legal experts are saying the content of Smith's sealed evidence could, and I'm quoting here, dramatically shift the political conversation and public opinion around Trump's legal exposure and the rule of law. Dramatically shift. That's not small potatoes. That's not just another footnote in an already complicated case. That's game-changing information. So what are we dealing with here? Are we looking at evidence that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that crimes were committed? Are we looking at documents that actually exonerate Trump and his team is fighting to get them released? Or are we somewhere in the messy middle where the truth is complicated and both sides are spinning it for maximum political advantage? Nobody knows, because nobody's seen it except Jack Smith and Judge Cannon and probably a handful of lawyers with top secret clearances who are bound by about 17 different non-disclosure agreements. This is wild, like genuinely wild. We're living in a moment where some of the most important evidence about one of the most significant legal cases in American history is being kept secret, and the fight to reveal it or to keep it hidden is happening right now, behind closed doors, in courtrooms, with lawyers filing briefs and judges making rulings that could shape the entire narrative. And here's what makes it even crazier: the leaks. Oh yeah, there are leaks. Information is trickling out, advocacy groups are pushing, media outlets are digging, and every time a new detail emerges, it just raises more questions than it answers. So yeah, that's where we are. Jack Smith has a secret document trove. Trump's legal team is maneuvering, prosecutors are fighting to control the narrative, and the rest of us, we're just sitting here waiting to see what happens next. Buckle up, because this story is about to get a whole lot more complicated. Alright, so let's dig into this a little deeper, because there's a lot going on beneath the surface here. And honestly, most people are completely missing the bigger picture. First off, Jack Smith isn't just sitting on a couple of memos. We're talking about an extensive, unreleased documentary evidence collection. Like, think of it as an iceberg. The stuff we've seen, that's the tip, the part above water. Everything else, all the really juicy, detailed, potentially explosive material, that's below the surface, hidden, sealed, classified. And the fight over these documents isn't just some boring legal procedural thing. This is a full-on battle. You've got advocacy groups demanding transparency. You've got a federal appeals court weighing in. You've got prosecutors trying to control what gets revealed and when. And you've got Trump's defense team doing everything they can to either block the release or spin the narrative before anything comes out. Let me break down what we actually know, because separating fact from speculation here is pretty important. We know for sure that Judge Kennan blocked the release of Smith's report on Trump's handling of classified documents. That happened last year, and she's kept it blocked ever since. Now, why would a judge do that? Well, there are a few possible reasons. Maybe she thinks releasing it would prejudice potential jurors. Maybe she thinks it would compromise ongoing investigations. Or maybe, and this is where it gets political, maybe she's trying to protect Trump. I don't know. You don't know. But the fact remains, the report is sealed. We also know that Smith's confidential filings include materials that have never been made public. Legal experts are talking about interviews. Not just any interviews, but interviews that apparently contain first-hand accounts from people who were in the room when key decisions were made. National Archives records that document exactly what Trump took when he took it and what happened afterwards. Communication logs showing who Trump was talking to during the 2020 election crisis and what they were discussing. And here's the kicker. These documents are believed to be far more detailed than earlier public releases. Far more detailed. That means the evidence we've already seen, the stuff that was damaging enough to result in multiple indictments, that's the sanitized version. That's the tip of the iceberg, remember? So what's in the full version? What are we not seeing? Well, let's think about what we do know from the redacted evidence that was released. There was this White House staffer, and we don't even know their name because it's redacted, who gave a first-hand account of Trump's reactions on January 6th, what he was saying, what he was doing, how he was responding in real time as the Capitol was being stormed. And even with half the document blacked out, it was pretty damning. Now multiply that by, what, 10, 20, 50? Nobody knows how much sealed evidence there is. But Smith confirmed in his filing last Friday that material evidence remains sealed from public view. He confirmed it. It's not speculation. It's fact. Grand jury transcripts. Those are sealed. Grand juries heard testimony from who knows how many witnesses, people who were in the White House, people who were involved in the classified document situation, people who saw things, heard things, knew things. And all of that testimony, sealed. Exhibit lists, those are sealed too. What exhibits? Documents, photos, videos, recordings? We don't know. But whatever they are, prosecutors thought they were important enough to present to a grand jury, and the grand jury thought they were compelling enough to return indictments. So let's talk about why this matters. Why should anyone care about documents sitting in a sealed file somewhere? Because, and this is critical, the content of these documents could dramatically shift the political conversation. That's not me saying that, that's legal experts saying that. People who have been following these cases closely, people who understand the legal implications, they're saying this could change everything. Public opinion around Trump's legal exposure hangs in the balance. Right now, people are divided. Some think he's guilty, some think he's being persecuted, some don't know what to think because they don't have all the information. And guess what? They don't have all the information because most of it is sealed. The rule of law is at stake here too. Like, think about it. If there's evidence of crimes, serious crimes, and that evidence is being kept secret, what does that say about accountability? What does that say about justice? Are we supposed to just trust that everything is being handled properly behind closed doors? And then there's the political angle. Oh boy, the political angle. We're heading into 2026. Midterms are coming. Trump is in his second term. The Republican Party is figuring out its future. The Democratic Party is figuring out its strategy. And lurking in the background of all of this is Jack Smith's secret document trove. Imagine if those documents get released before the midterms. Imagine if they contain evidence that's so damaging it shifts public opinion. Or imagine if they get released and they're not as bad as everyone thought. Or imagine if they never get released at all and we're still having this conversation 2 years from now. The fight over transparency is really a fight over control. Who controls the narrative? Who controls the timing? Who controls what information the public gets to see and when they get to see it? Prosecutors want to control it because they need to build their case methodically. They can't just dump everything into the public sphere and hope it works out. There's strategy involved. There's timing involved. There's legal procedure involved. Trump's defense team wants to control it because, well, obviously, they want to either prevent damaging information from coming out or they want to get ahead of it and spin it before it becomes public. Advocacy groups want full disclosure because they believe in transparency and accountability. They think the American people have a right to know what happened. In the courts are stuck in the middle, trying to balance all these competing interests while following legal precedent and constitutional principles. It's messy, it's complicated, and it's happening right now. Here's something else to consider. The leaks. Information is getting out even though it's supposed to be sealed. How is that happening? Well, when you have this many people involved, lawyers, court staff, investigators, witnesses, information finds a way. Someone talks to a reporter. Someone files a motion that includes a detail that wasn't previously public. Someone makes a strategic leap to shape the narrative. And every time something leaks, it creates another round of speculation and analysis and political spin, which creates more pressure for transparency, which creates more legal maneuvering, which creates more sealed documents. It's a cycle. So where does this leave us? We're in this weird limbo where we know there's massive amounts of evidence that could be incredibly important, but we can't see it. We know there's a fight happening over whether to release it, but we don't know who's going to win. We know it matters, like really matters, but we don't know exactly how or when, and that's by design. Both sides are playing chess here. Every move is calculated, every filing is strategic, every leak is intentional. But here's the bottom line. The truth is in those documents. Whatever happened, whatever Trump did or didn't do, whatever the evidence shows, is sitting in those sealed files, and eventually, one way or another, it's going to come out. The question is when, and under what circumstances, and how it's going to be received by a public that's already deeply divided and increasingly skeptical of institutions. This isn't just a legal story. This is a political story. This is a story about power and accountability and transparency and truth. And it's unfolding right now in real time while most people aren't even paying attention. Okay, so let's break this down into the core points you actually need to understand, because there's a lot of noise around this story and we need to cut through it. Point 1, Jack Smith has extensive unreleased evidence about Trump's alleged election subversion and classified documents handling. This isn't speculation, this is confirmed. Smith filed a brief last Friday that explicitly states material evidence remains sealed from public view. We're talking about grand jury transcripts, exhibit lists, interview records, National Archives documents, communication logs, the works. It's all sitting there, sealed, classified, hidden from public view. Why does this matter? Because the evidence we've already seen was enough to trigger multiple indictments. So if there's way more evidence that's way more detailed, well, you do the math. Either it's going to make the case against Trump even stronger, or it's going to reveal complications and nuances that change the story. Either way, it's significant. Point 2, there's an intense legal battle happening right now over whether this evidence should be released. Judge Kennan has been blocking the release of Smith's report since last year. Advocacy groups are fighting for full public disclosure. A federal appeals court is weighing in. Both prosecutors and defense teams are filing motions and briefs trying to control what gets revealed and when. This battle isn't just about legal procedure. It's about power. It's about narrative control. It's about timing. Whoever controls when and how this information comes out has a massive advantage, and both sides know it. And here's the thing. This fight is happening while Trump is in his second term as president, not as a candidate, as the sitting president, which adds a whole other layer of complexity. Can you prosecute a sitting president? Should sealed evidence be released while he's in office? What are the political implications? What are the constitutional implications? Nobody fully agrees on the answers to these questions. Point 3, the timing of all this is extremely suspicious or extremely strategic depending on your perspective. We're heading into 2026, midterms are coming, political battles are heating up, and suddenly there's this massive push to either release or block these documents. Coincidence? Come on. Of course it's not a coincidence. Everything in politics is about timing. If the documents get released before the midterms and they're damaging to Trump, that could impact Republican candidates across the board. If they get released and they're not as bad as expected, that could energize Trump's base and hurt Democrats. If they don't get released at all, both sides will spin that to their advantage. Legal experts are saying the content of Smith's sealed evidence could dramatically shift the political conversation and public opinion. Dramatically shift. Those are strong words. That means this isn't just another news cycle. This is potentially game-changing information. Point 4. The public is being kept in the dark, and that's creating a transparency crisis. Look, I get that there are legitimate reasons to keep certain evidence sealed, protecting ongoing investigations, ensuring fair trials, following legal procedure, fine. But at some point, the American people have a right to know what happened, especially when we're talking about potential crimes involving the president. Right now, we're in this situation where the full story is being kept secret, and we're just supposed to trust that justice is being served behind closed doors. And frankly, trust in institutions is at an all-time low. People don't trust the courts. They don't trust prosecutors. They don't trust the media. They don't trust politicians. So telling them, just trust the process isn't working. The debate over judicial transparency is reaching a boiling point. One side says we need to protect the integrity of legal proceedings. The other side says we need accountability and openness. And both sides have valid points. But meanwhile, the evidence sits sealed and the public remains uninformed. So what comes next? Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The legal battle continues. More filings, more motions, more court hearings. Eventually, some judge somewhere is going to make a decision about what gets released and when. And that decision is going to have massive implications for Trump's legal exposure, for the 2026 midterms, for public trust in institutions, and for the rule of law in America. But here's what you need to keep in mind. This story isn't going away. The evidence exists. The fight over it is real. And sooner or later, the truth is going to come out. The question is whether it comes out in a controlled, methodical way through official channels, or whether it comes out through leaks and strategic disclosures and political maneuvering. My guess is going to be messy, because everything about this case has been messy. Everything about Trump's legal situations has been messy, and there is no reason to think the end game is going to be any cleaner than the beginning. Who benefits from all this? Well, lawyers, obviously, they're making a fortune. Political operatives are using it to fundraise and energize their bases. Media outlets are getting clicks and views. Advocacy groups are pushing their transparency agendas. But who's actually serving the public interest? Who's making sure the American people get the information they need to make informed decisions about their government and their leaders? That's less clear. And that right there is the real story. Not just what's in Jack Smith's secret documents, but what the fight over those documents reveals about power, transparency, accountability, and truth in modern America. So yeah, buckle up, keep watching, keep paying attention, because this story is far from over. The evidence is out there. The battle is ongoing. And eventually, we're going to find out what's really in those sealed files. And when we do, it's going to be huge, one way or another. Stay tuned, because next time we're going to dig into what happens if or when those documents actually get released. And trust me, you're not going to want to miss it.